Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to And Here's Modi. I have a friend. I have a friend in the studio with me today. My friend Benny Roganitsky, better known as Cantor Benny.
Yes.
Yes, Cantor Benny. And you're here. You and I were always friends, and we became much closer friends during COVID. And we worked together, and working with you is so much fun. And
Right.
because you couldn't just cancel me. And then at one point, Rabbi Schneier, the guy who was being honored, the host who was his son, were all up there chalashing in the Holocaust stories. They were just up there talking about Holocaust and Holocaust and Holocaust and Holocaust. And the entire room was like, you have to understand, up front are all the dignitaries, then the billionaires, and then the parents of the kids in the school, 1,000 people. Now, it literally like watching Schindler's List. And the dinner hadn't been served yet. And Benny says to me, he goes, go up there and make this end. Right. And I'm like, what? He goes, just go up there and make it end. And I just walked up and I got there was a podium. Remember this?
Yeah.
And I walk up and Rabbi Schneier sees me and he says, hello, Modi. And they all just start to walk off the stage. Now, the audience is looking at me after hearing maybe 20 minutes of Holocaust stories. And I looked to the audience and I said to them, ladies and gentlemen, I am neither a son of a survivor or a grandchild of a survivor. In the mid-1930s, my grandparents, then living in Eastern Europe, turned to each other and said, this does not look good. Murray, grab your valise, we're going to Palestine. Saying Palestine with the Israeli ambassador in the front row. It got a huge laugh.
Right.
Which it could have gone either way. You know how
Yes.
you know how that could have gone
yeah.
either way. And then boom, dinner happened, and it was just an amazing, just to tell you, that's the back and forth Benny and I have. And then wow, throughout COVID, you and I, whenever there's an opportunity to bring some kind of laughter in to whatever events were happening at Park East Synagogue, you brought me live streaming, not streaming, this guy's anniversary, this guy's the shul's anniversary. We did it all on Zoom and like top end production.
Right.
You know, you being a performer know what it means, what the performer's going through also.
Right.
Not just how important is the sound and the videos and camera angles. You yourself as a performer. No, so it was, and that's like, we have history from shows and from performing, and then you hired me a few times to perform for your I guess your passion project. What's it called?
Yes.
From Divorced
Divorce.
Singles,
Yeah.
and it's an amazing organization that helps people who are from and divorced find their next spouse, their soulmate, God willing, and. We're going to take this moment right now to thank our sponsors. A&H Provisions, thank you very much for being a part of us. This is the best. You know A&H, don't you?
Now I know them for sure.
Come on. You never heard of A&H? The best hot dogs in the world. Even Goyim know how good they are and buy them. And Glatt kosher meats that are amazing. A&H. And if you go to their website, which I do not know, it is usually what Leo and Periel say, and you put in promo code MODI, you get 30% off your first order. And our other sponsors is Weitz and Luxembourg, that you've heard of.
Of course.
The law firm you want on your side. If you ever chas v'sholem need of the podcast, and we thank you for being a part. Now, the real reason I brought you here, okay, just giving everybody the achon of how we know each other, but
this is the warm-up. You know, cantors need a warm-up. This is the warm-up.
Yeah, this is the opening. This is the Chazan Rishon, the Shachos Chazan.
Right.
You have your finger on the pulse of Chazanis of today. Cantorial singing. I don't know if people even know what I'm talking about anymore. Do they know what I'm talking about?
So some know it just anecdotally. They know it through their parents or grandparents. That's the larger community.
I want you to know that I brought Eli Levin on the show to talk to him. I was hoping to get into Chazanis, and I was
Nothing.
Nothing. We spoke about Shweki and Lipa and Avram Frieda, but
Right.
I wanted to get into it with him, and he's the best. Eli Levin's a neshama. He's a soul,
Right.
and he sings beautifully, but he did not have any Chazanish background to even
Right.
talk about it with me. So I had to bring you. I said, I'm gonna tell you, I love Chazanis, and I
Right.
listen to it any place. And once in a while, even with a little schmeck of marijuana, Chazanis is on another level. It's a, so
For
in
the
gym-
listener or the performer?
for the performer, no, for the, I don't know. I never did it on but when I'm at the
Right.
gym, a little bit, very, very little, it puts you in a different space, and you're hearing the Chazanis, and I said, I want to talk about this. I go, who am I going to talk to about this? I go, Benny.
Right.
I want Benny on the podcast. I told Leo. He said, go ahead. So that's why I have you here. I have so much to talk to you about.
Well, let me just say, I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah.
I watch it, and I love everything that you do. You really are a super talent. And maybe because I am a performer and I'm a cantor, and I've performed at concerts and I lead davening, so I get to appreciate what it's like to be on stage. It's a different experience. And
Of course.
if you've never done it, you don't always necessarily appreciate how creative you have to be on the spot. And I was thinking, even on the way here, cantors and comedians have one thing in common. It's mostly not scripted. Yes, you know your music on Shabbos morning, but sometimes something happens and you need to change. Sometimes the rabbi looks at his watch and you
Yep.
got to move things along. You have the same thing in your line. You got to be quick on your
Stretch.
feet.
When the guy goes,
That's
stretch,
it.
the other comic didn't show up.
Correct.
Stretch.
Schlep it out.
Schlep it out. Schlep it out.
But with cantors- Right. That's most often what
Right.
happens with cantors. Let's go.
And
Move it
then
along.
Then you start doing.
Right.
By the way, the first time Leo ever came and watched me daven, and you do the piece or you not a piece, or you do a piece something strong with nusach, and you give it and you schlep it out of it, and then you go to. He goes, "What are you doing? That's not. You're not saying anything. You're not saying anything." So sometimes you have to move it along.
Yeah.
But what were we saying?
So I was just saying, first of all, so I can connect very much to the life of a comedian, to what the performance is like, because we also in the Cantred have to do that. And I, who was dying of cancer, and and he couldn't speak anymore, dying,
Right.
but we still want to make him laugh. And there were these moments that were just incredible. And I don't know that we would have had them if not for COVID and if not for the dark days.
100%. One of the things that COVID helped me discover was Mashiach energy.
Right.
I began to understand what Mashiach energy is and live in a way that Mashiach is already here. We just have to reveal it, which might be too deep for people or too crazy for them. But that's it, during COVID, that and especially coming out of COVID, that happened. But you're here because I want to get Chazanis off my shoulder.
Let's do it.
The Rebbe, Zechron Letzracha, said that a Jew has a neshama, it has to be ignited.
Yes.
It has to be ignited. Some people grow up in a religious home with the Shabbos and Yontifs and everything's kosher, and it still doesn't have an ignition to it. Maybe they have a rabbi that they hear a sermon and something gets them going. Maybe they meet the Rebbe, something. I know when my Yiddish neshama was ignited. I know. I was either 9, 10, or 11 years old. We were living in North Woodmere next to Temple Hillel. And we became members, and they had a chazan, Haskell Ritter. I was blown away to the point that every Shabbos, before my bar mitzvah, I would go, sit up front and watch him, mesmerized. He was a litoric baritone. I don't think he was a tenor. I mean, if he was, I'm so sorry. But if he was, mechila.
Right.
But I think he was a litoric. The way he sat on his notes, the nusach, the professionalism. It's also high drag, the robe, the hat, the
Pomp and
glasses.
circumstance.
And he had that old school tallis that it's not a tallis. What is that thing? What is that like from the Pope? It's ridiculous. It's like but this way he's not futzing all day long like this. There's nothing worse than you see the chazan just trying to get his tallis back on.
Yeah.
He had the little robe and he had this little sitter, the silver sitter that you buy in Jerusalem like this, and he'd hold it and sing it. And I loved him. I would always talk to him during Kiddush. And later on, he had diabetes, so he began to lose his sight, and he was davening completely by heart.
Wow.
Completely by heart. And I used to walk him home. I used to welcome back to his house. And listening to him was the most amazing thing in the world. And it ignited my soul completely. And there was Mashiach energy there too. So throughout every Saturday, the shul wasn't full.
Right.
So I'd sit up front. I had the top spot for Chazan Ritter. Amazing. And now the Yontifs came. My dad's not buying front seats. My dad's not a president of synagogue. He doesn't have any shaykhs to being in the front of the...
Right.
I'm not translating it. He's no shaykhs to being up front.
By the best mention.
Nah. Luckily, our friend joined the synagogue, my parents' friend, and they had a rich... his name was Boris Weinstein. Let's give him a shout out here. Boris Weinstock. And his father made a donation of a Sefer Torah. So now on the side of where the bima is, it was a stage. It was like a conservative, but more towards Orthodox shul.
Right.
And they put chairs for him. So Rosh Hashanah, I was even closer. And we sat, and I was done. I was unhinged by how great this was. And and then that sparked my Yiddish neshama, 100%. And then my grandfather passed away. And I had no idea that he listened to Chazan. So my father came back from Israel with a box full of cantorial tapes.
Wow.
Those tapes, where they all have that same headshot.
Sure.
And then Kvarten,
Right.
and I listened to those, and I was undone. I'm sitting in my room,
Right.
13, 14-year-old listening to Chazanis. Unbelievable. I couldn't get over it.
Right.
And that's literally where my Yiddish neshama was sparked from Chazanis.
Well, look, Chazanis is soul music. It's, we say these beautiful words, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Hanashama Lach. Think about it, someone, Hanashama. What is a neshama? You can't see. What is a soul? You can't see it. You can't touch it, but you can feel it. You close your eyes, you go to shul, and you hear the music, you hear the chazan, you hear his soul, and it's this most incredible feeling. And so, when you talk about neshama, and I always say the people that love chazanis and that can appreciate it have a very, very deep neshama. It's an acquired taste, but it's a tradition. A lot of people listen to chazanis and they remember, like you said, they remember themselves as a kid. They remember their father, their grandfather, what it meant to them, right? What was a chazan in Europe? He came to shul to tell the story, the pain and suffering of Jews. And in 15 minutes, he sang this beautiful Aneinu, which made you cry. Why? Because you remembered your suffering and you connected with him, and thereby you connected with God. And I think in an age where it's so hard for us to connect with one another and everybody's texting and everybody's doing everything online, to be able to listen to something and feel inspired, the man or woman that can do that, it's a gift.
100%. Back in the day, so this was in the 70s, 80s. No, 80s, I'm not that old. It was 80s, maybe even towards... There was a chazan in the shul. There was a chazan. A guy was paid. He wore the robe. Now it's whoever goes up and does Karbach Nagunim.
Right.
And by the way, I will once say that I went to... I don't know if you know this. This might blow you away. First of all, I've stolen a lot of things from you, from your Nusach tapes, and from listening to you. But you once held a seminar before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur davening.
Right.
You held it at that shul on 86th Street.
At the Jewish Center.
Yes.
On the west side. Yeah.
You were so strict and mean about how things have to be done. You can't just put a Karbach Niggin in because you feel like it. At least give 2 lines of Nusach and then do your Karbach Niggin.
You got it.
Tradition. Am I right?
It.
Literally tradition. Tradition.
It.
It was like this guy is, And then you brought in the ENT of Alberto Cantor Mizrahi.
Dr. Wu.
To show the everybody wants notes on how your voice is.
Right.
I'll tell you the big difference between Chazanim and a comedian is I've gone on stage with 103 temperature with no voice that whole day until I hit the stage. If the Chazan's voice is not on, it's not on.
You're cooked. That's the
done.
Greatest anxiety by far a Chazan has is 2 things. 1, I don't feel well till I get to the Amud. The second thing, I'm not trained well enough and I get up to sing, but I run out of juice 20 minutes into it. And what do I do then? I still got an hour of service.
Yeah.
And if you're not trained and you don't have backups,
yep.
You really need God's help. It's more than a prayer. You need a miracle.
Yeah, you can't just fake it.
No.
You can't fake it. A comic can fake it. I can
Right.
just get a quick joke into something I know it's going to work. But and I've been on stage with 103 temperature, and there was one time I had no voice the whole day. I just didn't
Right.
talk, voice silence, and I hit the stage, and whatever I had, I gave.
Right.
40 minutes, done. Went back home and just vitamin C, honey, all the
Right.
nonsense.
And you figure it out.
So that was the thing, and then the one thing I always get a great reaction from that I stole from you is in Friday night davening. אלוקי אברהם, אלוקי יצחק ואלוקי יעקב, הקהיל הגדול, הגיבור והנוער, הקהל עליון, כהן שמיים וארץ. It sets you up so good.
Right.
First of all, if you have your voice in, you can go berserk.
Correct.
You can really
You
blow
can
them
climb
away.
the ladder
You can
there.
climb the ladder there.
Yeah.
No way.
Right.
Because it's scaled up. You're
Right.
great on it, and then you're set up for the end. And it's at the point of the service that everybody's already done. They're already
Right.
good. They're hungry. There's a challah waiting for them.
Correct.
They're done. What a great piece. You have 2 nusach tapes out.
Yes.
Available on Spotify, by the
Spotify,
way.
yes.
I love them, and I listen to them always before. Every once in a while, again, a little shmech, and they're amazing. The Kol Nidre,
I have a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur
yes,
and Friday night.
Yeah.
And I'm actually right now working on Shabbos Day.
really,
Yes.
it's so good. It's
Yeah.
such good nusach, and let me tell you something. You have an amazing voice, but if you have nusach down, you don't really need that great of a voice.
100%.
You do not need that great of a voice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say something else. I'm dying up. The second time my neshama was like punched again was from another chazan. Now, we spoke about this before the podcast. Chazanis, there's no bad. There's your flavor and your
Correct.
choice. I think one of the greatest chazanim of our time, Cantor Ari Klein. I don't know what politics anybody has. I think he is the best thing that I was able to experience. Obviously, you work with Chazan Helfgott.
Right.
Like, wow.
Right.
Wow. Wow. We have to give credit for what that
100%.
man did. He
100%.
brought it back.
Yeah.
People were buying CDs. Kids were listening to it in their minivan with their parents.
Right.
Chazan Helfgott delivers. This voice is insane.
It's reliable.
It's reliable.
Yeah.
It is, and he's so sweet. If you
Right.
get to know him and then you watch him daven,
You can have a chazan with an amazing voice. And he could do something to you because of the trill, because of how he hits the notes. But a neshama chazan with the first note, it just gets to you. And you know what they say that about? Rosenblatt. When people say, what was great about Rosenblatt? Jackie Mendelson, my dear friend, fantastic chazan, says, my mom, when she'd listen to Rosenblatt, this first note, she would start to cry
really,
because there was so much emotion there. Klein is a neshama chazan.
full. And let me say something. I'm going to say this also. I understand Rosenblatt was the bar or whatever you want to call. It never spoke to me in the way I know. Listen, I love his stuff.
Right.
I listen to it, but if I'm choosing a song for one thing, Kvarten.
But there's
can't.
another neshama chazan.
That's in full neshama chazan.
Yes.
Full Kvarten. Oh my God! Any of his songs, but especially the David Mizmor, Tir Rabbi Shmuel.
Yeah.
Here we are seeing all day long anti-Semitism. They
Right.
put on our swastika on our shul.
Yeah.
You hear Tir Rabbi Shmuel Atzma. That's anti-Semitism. That's anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kvarten blows me away. I'll tell you a funny story. I have so much to talk to you about. I hope we can pop this all in. First of all, I made friends with Ari Klein. Again, my first apartment in Manhattan was on 69th and 1st, and your shul was up the block.
Right.
So that's where I discovered Ari Klein. I walked up the block Friday night, boom. I was hooked, addicted to Ari Klein. And then we became friends, and he treats me like family.
That's so nice.
And then I always begged him, give me voice lessons,
Right.
please.
Teach me.
Finally he did. I want you to imagine me and him screaming at the top of our lungs in his kitchen on the Upper West Side. That was it. My voice was him. But one time I said, and he has a great sense of humor.
Yes, yeah.
Hilarious guy. I said to him, why do we, I don't remember the exact story about the Chazan, but I said to him, how come we always do Ladav and Mizmor for the end of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur davening?
After Shemona Esrei.
In the Kvarten Nusach.
Yeah.
Why? He goes, he watched his house burned down and his parents killed by Russians. Do you want to write one? Do you want to write a new one? You're like, that. I think he's qualified. It's so true. What this Chazanim went through is with the,
Yeah.
I sang in his choir, and I want to tell you, I sang in a few choirs.
Right.
And I've always had the best time with them. First choir I ever sang with, Asher Sharf. You know him?
Muncie?
Muncie.
Yes.
He's still alive.
Yes.
Comes to shows once in a while.
Right.
I love him. I fell in love. I didn't know a chazan could be so sweet.
Right.
He was the sweetest guy. And he davened at a shul by our house, or Torah. Young Rice, Rabbi Young Rice's shul. His wife, Esther Young Rice, was there.
Right.
But Rabbi Young Rice was a soul.
Right.
And he had this chazan, and we sang in his choir, and it was so much fun.
Wow.
And he gave me solos, and he really again sparked the neshama of it, and it was such a blast. And I sang with Ari, after he left Parky Synagogue, did this whole thing, Kol Neshama. And we sang with the family and Mo Kiss, and we had the best time.
Right.
And we did, it was Karl Bach meets Chazanis, and it was amazing. And there's something about singing in a choir. Now, the choir by you guys, is anybody Jewish in your choir?
I plead the fifth.
You plead the fifth, but they're all sitting there reading music. Right. They're all reading music. Who knows how to read any of this stuff?
Don't ask any questions. Just read the music and move on.
Yeah, okay. Ari Klein, I wanted to get that talk to you. The problem with Chazanis is that you can't really record live because it's on Shabbos.
Correct.
So the albums that are out there are Slichas.
Right.
Slichas is the Saturday before Rosh Hashanah. It's in the evening after Shabbos, and you can record it because it's not Shabbos anymore. And I will say to you again, a huge Ari Klein addict. His Slichas album is one of the best.
I agree.
Albums that are out there.
Yeah.
It is, his son produced it, Mendy produced it.
Right.
It is taped at the Parky Synagogue. He was on.
Right.
The neshama was there.
Yeah.
It is anybody into Chazanis, learning Chazanis, trying Chazanis, it is a mandatory.
Yeah. Overflowing with soul.
It's just, and you can tell he's improvising,
right.
He's whatever. Now, I will say something else about. I'm sorry, I'm not letting you talk at all.
It's okay.
I'm not letting you talk. Mo Kiss, sent me a bunch of Moshe Stern's
davening.
I don't know, but Shabbos davening.
Right.
Have you heard these?
Yes, I have heard some. It's not normal.
There's a Kol Nidre he has out there that someone, I guess, put a machine.
Right.
Which is against halacha, but you know what?
Don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell. And he does this Kol Nidre, and he improvises in the middle of it. It is so. It's so insane, and I can't. It's great. And you had him. You produced. Sphera concerts.
Right, on the Lower East Side.
At the Bialystock Shul.
Sure.
I was there for it live, and then I bought the album.
Right.
And it is, first of all, it was, I forgot who did Mincha, and then Ma'ariv was Moshe Stern, and Cantor Helfgott did Sphera. And so Moshe Stern's Ma'ariv that night was probably the best thing.
It's
ever.
Fireworks. It's just, there's no other way to say it.
There's no other way. And first of all, there's, in the beginning of him coming on, after Vehu Rachum, the next part, some guy sneezes. But the guy sneezed, it's like an old man, but he sneezed on key. And
on the beat.
Were you dying in the editing room? Were you like, please get this out somehow? But you can't get it out.
It's mazel. It's like the guy whose cell phone goes off just during when it's quiet.
Right,
taking a breath.
But there were no cell phones didn't go off for some reason. But that sneeze, boom, boom. I always, anyway, And then again, you can only see slicha stuff. And so like Chaim Adler,
Right.
when you watch his slicha services,
Yeah.
you're moved. You're blown away.
It's magnificent.
It's magnificent.
What's also interesting is how, and again, I relate this to comedy. In today's world, it's very hard to get 500 people in the room to agree on anything,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone has their own opinion. And I would think as a comedian, you can make two people laugh who are on the opposite side of the political spectrum. But the laughter, they'll be unified in. They'll laugh because there's no harm done. Same thing with tefillah. I look at the people in the shul, in our shul and other shuls, many of them not religious, some of them completely to the left and the right. When it comes to davening, it comes to Tir Rabbi Shmuel Atzmo, comes to Hineni, Rosh Hashanah Yikasevon, they're united.
Right.
It doesn't make a difference where you are in the political map. You're here to pray, to connect with God. And that's what's so beautiful about Chazanim. Chazanim have that switch that if they just do it right, they connect with the audience in a way that's second to none.
Yeah, but I agree with you, but I also a little disagree. Someone's coming to see my show. They're coming to see Modi.
Right.
Someone's going to shul. They might not want to hear a chazan. They might want this to go quicker.
They might want it to go quicker, but then they can shop for other options. In most cases, if a guy's coming to a shul on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, he knows what to expect. He knows when the service is going to start, who's going to lead it, et cetera, et cetera. But yes, you're right. Very often.
Yeah, our shul downtown, I go to 6th Street Synagogue. Rabbi Bellino, also been a guest on the podcast. And I was doing for many years the Kol Nidre service, which is my favorite because it's 6 in the evening, you've eaten, you're full, your voice is there. There's no in the morning from fasting. There's none of that. Your voice is there. I'll do Kol Nidre, I'll kill it, done. Whoever wants to do Musaf for the next day, all yours. It's a shul that we do Kal B'ch Nagunim, and we have a guy, I forgot his name, but he's wonderful. He was a Maccabite and he learned the Nusach and he's great and we enjoy it. And it's fun being in, standing and singing along rather than having to worry about all that stuff. And it's great. Every shul has its own vibe.
100%.
Your shul is really like, I don't say fancy, but it's well-to-do people.
Right.
They're showing up in suits.
Oh, absolutely.
There's suits. There's no one's wearing a suit in our shul.
Right.
It's an Orthodox shul, but no, everybody's casual.
No formalities.
It's all formalities, and the fact that you call Chazan Helfgott Chief Chazan.
Yeah.
That's like so old school.
Right.
Like when you hear Chazan Hirschman, who was the chief cantor at Krakow, or wherever they were, is Chief Chazan. That means there were 5 other Chazans.
Big deal, correct.
Right, yeah.
He took the cake.
He was the head of that, and it's amazing. I just can't tell people how Chazanis could really just move you. It really... what else did I want to talk to you about? I don't know. I kind of needed to get that off my chest. It's just Chazanis, and where do you see Chazanis going? Oh, I did a show for you. Poor Ben, you haven't gotten a word out yet. You really haven't. Mamash a korban. I brought you like a korban for my rant. You brought me to a show once. It was a Chazanis weekend.
Right. Yes.
It was so good.
Right.
I was there. So you did a weekend. Tell us, what was it?
So we had the Chazan Helfgott, other Chazanim. We started Shabbos morning at, I think, 8:15. We stopped at 12 for a short Kiddush, and we continued another 2.5 hours.
Wow. All the Chazanim.
Right.
All of them. Who was there? Helfgott, Chazan Helfgott.
Boyer, Rosenfeld, Motzen, every name. Miller, I think Miller's son was there.
And what's his name from the choir?
Russell Gere was there. Chilu Posen.
Chilu,
love him.
Everybody was there. And I get up.
Right.
And I said, and I just started going off on Chazanis.
Right.
And I was like, and it was so much fun. I did like 30 minutes. It was so good. It got everybody in the mood. And it lightened the whole thing up.
100%.
And you knew that was it
was a connector.
You just knew it.
Yeah.
So
and let me just say, I was sitting next to Chazan Helfgott as you were going up the show, and his English is okay, but when you speak fast, it's harder for him to understand. Now, can you imagine what it's like to translate what you're saying from English to Hebrew, and he didn't even understand my Hebrew. He needed it in Yiddish.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to tell your jokes. So that was the experience.
It's so funny because you really get it. And I'm done with my Chazanish rant. I think I covered everything. I was really I wanted to. Do you have anything you want to add about Chazanis? And then I have one other topic I'll talk to you
No,
about.
I'll just say, as it relates to Chazanis, people say, is it dead? Is it alive? I think there's no question that Chazanis is still alive, but in a very different form. People don't have patience today, right? And a cantorial piece, in order to get going, takes 10 to 15 minutes. There's no such thing as a short 3-minute piece. It
Right.
just doesn't work that way. People today, they want to move things along. It's like the WhatsApp, in double speed. So people that are smart, Chazanim that are smart, even Carlbach,
Yeah.
you got to do it faster. You got to engage the crowd. You can't sit there for 2 hours and be singing Anenu, because you'll be left basically with the keys to the door without anybody in the audience.
Yeah.
And smart Chazanim that are able to navigate the service and be in touch with their audience can keep cantorial music alive.
Yeah. It's not a full piece. Put a part of it
Right.
into it. It's a little bit into it,
We say on Shabbos, To'amel Chaim Zachu, right? Chassidim like this thing, To'amel. It's a taste. You don't have to give people the full menu. Give them a sampling so that they walk out inspired.
Good gesucht. It's
Shkoyach.
real. No, shkoyach. That's the world we live in. You can't listen to a 7-minute piece anymore. But if you pop in a little bit in the Carl Bachanigan, you do that. You really make that. Moshe V'Yado. You schlep that a little bit, and then go back.
And then you go back to the
is more or less
100%. Then you marry both worlds in a very, very creative way.
So when we sang with Kol Neshama with Ari Klein, that's what we did.
Right.
He hopped it. He gave them that thing that He's, besides a neshama chazan, he's one of those also that he's screaming or whispering.
Right.
Anyway, I'm going to say back to the events that we've done.
Yes.
And being a comedian and all of that. And you have to deal with shuls, and your shul, and there's money involved, and there's money there. You have to make sure it goes to the right places. It goes to the right. Wow. When COVID hit, the school, the Arthur Schneier School, was open before anybody.
Right.
And we had to do a video. And it was real.
I thought you would never talk to me after that.
But I'm going to show you what Mashiach energy is. We had to do this video to describe what's going to be happening in the school.
Right.
How these poor kids had to sit there with the plastic on there, and their lunch was going to be brought to them. And there was a script that had to be adhered to.
Right.
All of these words had to be said in order to cover your tuchuses.
Right.
Right?
100%.
So, and I don't know. I'm not going to memorize script. I was going to bring it, and the kids will be here. They're going to get lunch. And anyway, luckily, the sound guy is very sweet, like elderly black guy, really nice. He goes, "Oh, this guy's an idiot." He goes, "Oh no, this guy." He caught that I'm dyslexic. I have ADHD. He caught it right away. We went into there's like a little shop in the shul, like where they sell.
Silver store there.
Has anybody sold anything from there?
No,
never.
No.
There's menorahs and
Matzeves.
There's nothing in there. So he closed the door. Me and him with the mic taped the entire script. And then we shot the script, me wearing a mask.
So people couldn't, I didn't even know that.
So he put it in while
Brilliant.
I'm walking and talking to whoever I'm talking to explain. And the bathrooms have this, and you're going to know if someone's in there. When they come out, the next guy can come in. And that was Mashiach energy right then and there. But as I'm saying, I'm getting to the point like this. In the Gemara, it says like this. It's there's a story about Eliyahu Navi is in the shuk,
right?
And someone comes over here and says, "Who here in the marketplace has chelik ba'olam haba, has a portion in the world to come?" And Eliyahu Navi points to two guys and says, "Them." And then the guy goes and asks, "What do you do?"
Right.
And they say, "Anu anshe bediche."
Right.
We are men of laughter, b'dichot, jokes, laughter. Anshe b'diche. Anu mevatchem etzuve. We make people who are sad happy. Inami. And also, when there's a riff in the community or something, we bring
them together.
Peace through laughter. Now, it's an amazing Gemara.
Right.
Now, I got into it in my head more. First of all, it's a Gemara, and we know that you don't just use words frivolously. Why is it two guys? If you say every comedian has chelik in olam haba, why is it? He said the guy over there's a comedian, his chelik in olam haba. He didn't say batchan. Anu batchanim.
Right.
Anu anshe bediche.
Anshe b'dicha.
One of them is a comedian. Yes, one of them is a comedian.
Right.
But the comic needs somebody else. The comic needs a Benny to make sure that, yes, we need laughter here right now. Let me organize this. Let's put this together. So that's Anshe Bediche. Whoever gives you money for your events is Anshe Bediche.
Right.
Our sponsors here who know that this makes people happy,
Right.
Seth and Arthur, they give money. Anshe Bediche. That's Anshe Bediche. And the piece, I remember during COVID, there were shuls that were ripped apart because of outside minyan, inside minyan. Some guy said, I remember this on Purim. He goes, whatever it costs to bring Modi, I'll pay.
Right.
It was the first time the shul united
Together.
after. He was Anshe Bediche.
Right.
Turn to the rabbi, what do you need to make a comedy show happen? Make it happen.
Right.
When Trump was elected in 2016, the first time, synagogues were ripped apart.
100%.
Ripped apart. And the first time laughing together was when but whoever put that show together, it's not just the comic, it's whoever. So, I tell, now I have a price for when I do shuls. We're not doing that many shuls anymore because I'm doing theaters, Baruch Hashem, and they moved on. But like recently I had an event where the guy came only he wouldn't go to my price. He came just below. And I said, no. You know why? I begin to believe that this comedy, it's like, when you buy a Torah or when you buy a mezuzah, it's precious. Something precious, you're not allowed to negotiate with.
Right.
There's I forgot the laws. Like if the sofer says my Torah costs $100,000 and you're willing to only pay 80, you put it out there. If everybody's happy, okay. If not, you walk away. You don't negotiate on divrei kedusha. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, divrei kedusha.
Divrei kedusha. So, and I think the comedy is something that unites and brings people together, and that's why that's it. I'm on it. But you are 100% Anshe Bediche. You create happiness. You created a vibe in that shul. You bring that shul to, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
Modi, I remember, first of all, what you say is very kind and generous. And I very much relate to what you say about Anshe Bediche, because I believe that every person has what you would call in Yiddish a tafkid. They have a role. We spend half our lives trying to figure out what is our role. And some people can live an entire life and not know what they're here for. If you know, because you see from people how they respond to you, you're doing God's work. It may be a secular stage, but it's God's work.
Yeah.
And I say the same thing about cantorial music. Forget the traditions and Rosenblatt and Kvartin, they're all great. If you got off the bima and you inspired someone, you did God's work. You did the nusach. Obviously, nusach matters. I'm not discounting it. But more than anything, it matters to touch, to inspire, to have people walk away. And you do that in your way. And we try a little bit in our way to do that for people and inspire them and have them connect to Hashem. And more importantly, even connect to each other, which we have to try and do. So I'll just say, first of all, it's always wonderful to be with you. The one thing that I feel when it comes to performers in general, and especially in music, the people that get the least credit are those that do the work behind the scenes. So for example, you never know who someone's voice teacher is. They could be gargling like you did with Ari Klein for 50 weeks. And then one day they get up and they bring it out. They never say, oh, I'd like to thank my voice teacher. Because they're the unsung heroes.
Right.
But you know what the work is. You know what the prep is before you get it. You know how much you're shaking as a chazan. Do I have the notes? Do I feel well? Did I take the medicine? Is my wife in shul? Right? There's so much that goes into it. And the ability to put that all together, to harness it, and then promote and preserve and connect to Yiddishkeit and connect to music or comedy, it's a gift. And I'm proud of you as my friend that you have that gift. And I'm proud of us as a shul and human beings that we're able to give that gift to so many people.
No, you obviously have that gift as you're also a chaz and you've done that. And also the gift, you're also behind the scene person.
Right.
It's not, you really straddle both worlds.
Right.
It's amazing. Anyway, I think I got everything I had off my soul about how important Chazanis is to me.
I think you have to sing the first line of Kol Nidri. Just in honor of the most famous song, I would say, ever sung is Kol Nidri. Who doesn't go to shul on Yom Kippur? So Modi, the first line, something.
על הדעת המקום ועל הדעת הקהל בישיבו של מעלו וישיבו של מובבתו אנו מתירים ליטפול עלים אבל יבואו עינים. That's the first line of Kol Nidre.
Yeah.
It's not Kol Nidre.
No,
It's
that's
not
the
Kol Nidre.
opener.
It's
That's the
best.
warmth.
That's when you set it
Yeah,
all up.
100%.
That's when you set it all up.
It's beautiful.
It's so good to have you. Are you plugging
Thank you.
anything? What do you want?
I'm plugging just to listen to Nusach, listen to CDs, come to Shul, be inspired, and pay it forward.
And your shul, Kenai Nahara, has Chazan Helfgot, and there's plenty of empty seats
yes.
on Shabbos.
We
It's
could-
a
we could
massive
fill them.
synagogue.
Yeah.
You can, if anybody is on the Upper East Side, or enjoy. Go
Yeah.
listen to Chazan Helfgot. You will. It's life changing.
100%.
There's a choir there with that guy. What's his name? 5, 6, 7, 8, 3, 2, 7, 8. Right? Remember?
That's exactly right.
Literally.
And God, if somebody speaks next to him and he could hear him, he'd shoot him with that baton.
Oh,
take
God.
it easy. It's
Right. And so go visit Park East Synagogue. You're my guests. I am a member, and you are my guest to go listen to Chazan Helfgot or Chazan Benny. And is there any website you want to plug or anything?
parkeysynagogue.org, I would say, and it should be a good gebench dior.
Amen.
We
And-
all need blessings.
And
That's,
follow Cantor's World. You can buy them when
Cantor's
all
World,
your
sure.
Cantor or your concerts.
Yes. All
Yes.
Cantorial.
What is
it's
it?
cantorsworld.com, actually.
Cantorsworld.com. You also
yeah.
have Instagram.
Instagram, yeah. Also at Cantor's World. And myself personally, Cantor.Benny.
Yes,
Yeah.
follow it. Go see a concert, a Sphera concert, anything. It's so a slichus. Do yourself a favor. Get in like that mind frame. I'm going to go listen. Even pretend it's an opera. Go
Right.
and just enjoy it, but it'll touch you. I'm at ModiLive.com. We've added shows in Kane, Inahara, Charlotte, North Carolina, Milwaukee. Can you spell Milwaukee?
No, I can't
No,
even
I don't
say
know.
it.
I can't say Milwaukee.
I'm from England. I don't
Milwaukee and Atlanta. The show tickets are going to be moving very fast. And then we have the shows in Europe and we have the shows in Israel. We added a few shows in Israel because we sold out. ModiLive.com. Be the friend who brings the friends to the comedy show. It's just Mashiach energy. Thank you again to A&H Provisions and Whites and Luxembourg. You guys are buddies. Anshe Bediche, thank you all very much. Thanks for doing this with me today, Benny.
A good gebench dior, everyone.
Thank you. Perfect. Wow, did he even speak once this whole time?